I'm Stephanie Gurnsey Higgins, Minister for Diocesan Development and Congregational Stewardship. I'm in my 10th year on staff here at the Diocese of Virginia, where I love helping congregations communicate their mission and ministry and connecting parishioners to what engages them most. I want to welcome you to our webinar to discuss the ministry of planned giving. I'm looking forward to being in conversation with you as much as is possible in this format. So please remember you can reach out by email, on our Facebook page, or here in the comments afterwards with your questions or ideas. I'm happy to be of help, and if your question is better directed to someone else, I will pass it on to the appropriate person on our staff so that they can help you. Please know that I am not able to offer personal financial advice. For specific assistance, you should be in touch with your financial advisor so you can receive details on how to offer gifts from your estate to your church. Today we're going to talk about creative ideas for supporting the mission and ministry of your church with legacy gifts, a mission and ministry that has supported and embraced you and the many members who worship there and have worshiped there before you. I'm especially excited to offer resources that allow each of you to fully express your enduring love for your church and your love for Jesus Christ. So before we begin, we're going to close our eyes and remember back to a time when we were able to sit and worship in our church buildings. For some of us, that has been recent. For some of us, it's been over a year now. For some, it might be even longer. So gently close your eyes. You're probably sitting in a regular seat. It's okay, we all have one. You might have family or friends or those you know sitting around you. There's chatter before the service, and then organ or piano music might begin to play. And we move our attention and our hearts towards worship. Our church, the one that we see ourselves sitting in with our eyes closed, that church has been built and cared for by many members who've come before us. They made gifts, both large and small, that have helped the congregation through difficult and through flourishing times. All of these gifts have made a difference, not only financially, but in the spiritual lives of those who gave. How can we make a difference in the future of our church? That's what we're going to talk about today. As Christians, we believe part of our response to God's love is to support the mission and ministry of the church. I imagine that over the course of your life, somewhere, sometime, you may have felt that overwhelming sensation, that thin space, when you knew God's presence above all else. These experiences fill us, they take our breath away, they remind us of what we felt the first time we knew God. This is the story we are called to tell through our actions, our words, and every expression we have to offer. It's the story we tell through conversations, if you're one of those bold Episcopalians who talk about church, and by demonstrating our commitment to the mission and ministry of our church through financial support. When you begin to think about who, or even what, has had the greatest influence on you, on shaping your identity, think about the communities that were central to who you are. What do you value? What do you hope to give to the generations beyond? Whether you're a leader in your church, clergy, or a regular parishioner, just like me, I hope you take the opportunity, individually, or maybe with someone else, to think about this. What do you value? What do you hope to give to the generations beyond? Even though we don't have the time or the space to delve into these questions with one another right now, these aren't rhetorical questions. They are real questions to think about. We'll come back to this when we start talking more about endowments, but keep this in mind. because as Billy Graham said, a checkbook is a theological document. It tells you who and what you worship. Henry Nouwen's book, A Spirituality of Fundraising, is perhaps the best book on raising money in a church context. He says, fundraising as ministry is grounded in prayer and undertaken in gratitude. Why is this important? I think that we don't talk about money at church because we feel that it doesn't belong here, that it's not part of the work of the church. And really, we know that's not true. We are better able to fulfill our mission and help our communities when we have the funds to do so. However, it's not all about the money. It begins with our heart and our feelings towards that money. When we turn our focus towards the outcome, the difference the money can make, and make a difference in ourselves through prayer and gratitude, then we are less likely to be offended by talk of money in our church. We know that we can do great things for people by changing their lives. This scripture from 2 Corinthians has been my focus for the past several years. It speaks to me and to the work that I do. You might even find scripture or a quote that focuses your intention as you begin your ministry. We're going to talk for a few minutes about planned giving from the perspective of your church. Let's look at the elements that are essential for planned giving. First, we all have a story to tell. You need to be able to explain what you're raising money for and how it fits into your strategic vision for your congregation. We need to tell the story of Jesus, making sure that you're sharing the good news as often as possible and in as many ways as possible. Tell the story of how important God and your church are to each of you as individuals. If this is scary, begin with short messages that you can include in your newsletter or social media posts. This would also be a great ministry moment that someone could give during the offertory. Even when we're worshiping virtually, our ministry moments are just as important. So think about how you can use this offertory time to tell your story. As the clergy or leadership for your organization, be prepared to tell the story of what the money will be used for. Make sure you have the appropriate policy and endowment structures in place too. Be prepared by creating or revisiting your gift acceptance policies. You want to show how trustworthy you are and that you are good stewards of the gifts that people have entrusted to you. Once you have everything in place, you're ready to invite people to respond to the vision you've set out. Educate them about your process. Enlighten them so they can see how their generosity will make a difference. All of these factors taken together inspire people to be supportive of your church. We cannot depend anymore that people will automatically know to support our congregations. You must be able to demonstrate that you're having an influence on the lives of the people in your congregation as well as the wider community. People need to know that today. This might be a refresher for some, but I want to make sure we all have a common understanding for our conversation. Ordinary giving is what funds our annual giving. This is the money I have in my checkbook. At your church, this is your operating budget. We find that it ebbs and flows depending on our income and the economy. Extraordinary giving, this is capital needs of the church that are funded from individuals' capital. This means their savings and their investments. When we run a capital campaign, we look for higher amounts because we're funding this from capital. Ultimate giving, this is planned giving or legacy giving. These gifts are future focused. They come from estate and assets that we're holding on to for our retirement. These gifts are from your most committed members, so they may be from the fewest number of households, but they are often the largest gift a person will make in their lifetime, and they can be life-changing for a church and the people it serves. As congregations look at their planned giving programs and endowments, it's really important to make sure that you don't use these ultimate gifts just to keep the doors open. This is a matter of policy, but it's also a matter of trust. If a congregation is using planned gifts to float the operating budget all of the time, people may choose to put their money elsewhere. We have a biblical mandate for planned giving. We remember God's greatest gifts in the Eucharist. God calls us to use all of our gifts in ministry by giving ourselves and our means. Leaving a planned gift to your church's mission reminds the next generation of your enduring faith and beliefs. The minister of the congregation is directed to instruct the people from time to time about the duty of Christian parents to make prudent provision for the well-being of their families and of all persons to make wills while they are in good health, arranging for the disposal of their temporal goods, not neglecting, if they are able, to leave bequests for religious and charitable uses. As leaders in the church, when thinking of planned giving, this is not a conversation for folks who are our age or even older. As this prayer book of ours includes this rubric in the celebration for birth and adoption, not in the burial office. Everyone, even younger people, are undergoing important life transitions and need to be included in our planned giving conversations. This is an especially essential conversation right now, as many people's attention is focused on their finances and their health, and they're interested in making or even updating their wills. Since they're willing to have these conversations, which is the hardest part anyway, meet them where they are, be prepared, and help them. It is important to be sensitive, patient, and gentle. This is a long-term ministry. You are not promoting a particular type of planned gift. This should be a natural extension of your stewardship ministry so that individuals can make essential decisions for themselves. What is an endowment? These are long-term funds that are set aside and invested to provide a reliable source of income for your church over time. While the principal assets remain invested, the income is often spent to advance your church's mission. Endowments are future-focused and to be used for projects that are of strategic importance to your congregation. We set up endowments to empower ministry just as much as we help with new roofs and parking lots. Generally, there are two types of endowments: donor-restricted and board-restricted, or a quasi-endowment. Endowments are funded when a bequest or cash gift or life income gift, which we'll talk more about in a little bit, is made to your church. If a restriction is placed on the gift that the principal cannot be spent, then you have a true endowment and a legal obligation to fulfill the terms of the gift if the vestry chooses to accept it. If a vestry sets aside unrestricted funds to be managed as an endowment, then you have a quasi-endowment, since a future vestry could decide at some date to spend down the principal. The best protection for assuring permanence of a quasi-endowment is the formal adoption of clearly drawn resolutions, policies, and guidelines. An enabling resolution usually imposes strict requirements for the amendment to the rules. ECF, Episcopal Church Foundation, has endowment policies and guidelines available that I can heartily recommend as a great place to start, and I'll post a link to their resources. Of all of the gift vehicles that we will look at, this is the only one that you, as a congregation, have the ability to shape. You can communicate the good work of your endowment, how it is structured, and how the money can be spent. It is important to take time to get endowments set up properly, because this is usually where your bequest gifts will end up. As with all givers, good pastoral care and reporting are key, because planned givers are unique, and through their gifts, they've elevated your church to the level of family. A gift should be created and acknowledged in a sensitive and grateful way. Typical planned givers include those who have a close and long-standing relationship with the congregation, since experience tells us that the people who are consistent givers are most likely to leave a legacy gift. People near retirement, those with children, and those with retired parents are all people who may have a practical need to consider a planned gift. Addressing family or financial needs may prompt them to also consider the benefits of a charitable gift. Your relationship with a legacy gift giver will likely be longer. These gifts have a longer cultivation time. They require more conversation and discussion of personal information like family, hopes, bequests. The gift is given by charitable aspiration and beloved causes, and may involve others, such as family members, and maybe even legal or financial advisors. So when you're getting ready to sit down and discuss planned giving with a parishioner, or when you yourself are ready to sit down and discuss planned giving, try to think of this as a friendly visit. Ask yourself, what is motivating this gift? What do you value? What do you hope to give to the generations beyond? Make it easy for folks to discuss their plans. Thank them for their interests. Ask them why they joined your congregation, what they liked about it, their favorite memories. Ask them about their hobbies and other charitable interests. Go ahead and ask them about their family and other people involved in their life, especially who else might need to be involved, or even who might need assurance about the gift. You could review the areas in which they can support your church, especially specific funds that support their interests. Providing them with information about ways to give to your endowment is always useful. Let them know about the tools they can use to support your church, such as bequests, life income gifts, and the use of appreciated assets. You don't need to be an expert. If this is more complicated than you feel comfortable with, create a worksheet or use one of the brochures that we have available from ECF. They have given you this great honor by giving you their attention. Be sure to thank you for their time and honor them by holding their information confidential. Be sure to follow up with them after you've met. Planned giving is about establishing a relationship, and often gifts are not made after the first conversation. If you have not heard back in some time, drop them a note asking if they have had time to consider the gift and if they need more information. Always make sure that they are aware of the next step and let them know that you are ready to help them out. When you do receive the gift, remember saying thank you is the most important thing that you can do to ensure the success of your planned giving program. People are making a deeply personal decision to leave a gift to your congregation, and this choice should be acknowledged. Givers who do not feel appreciated do not continue to give, and they may change their estate plans. Some ways to say thank you include sending handwritten notes from your clergy or even chair of your endowment committee, including them in your legacy society, or listing their name publicly as long as they have given you permission. And you might even consider a small or inexpensive recognition item like a lapel pin or something similar. Keep in mind, legacy gifts are built on relationships and will usually take longer to cultivate than annual or capital gifts. However, they are likely to be the largest gifts your church will receive. Unlike ordinary annual giving and extraordinary capital campaign gifts, ultimate giving is future focused. Legacy giving is creative because it helps people make gifts they did not think they could with assets they had not thought of using. This helps impact more lives for Jesus by integrating our family, church, and our financial goals. The most important thing when an individual leaves a planned gift to your congregation is that they have raised you to the level of family in their estate plan, the same level as their children and their grandchildren. This is a really important gift emotionally, and they have become very invested in your future well-being, your future mission and ministry. They're so committed that they will put you at this equally important place in their estate plan. It's crucial for you as leaders of your congregation that you must respond appropriately and thank people and demonstrate that you understand how important this is to them. Respond in ways that are emotionally appropriate, thank them, and hold up their witness because they need to know that you know how important this is. We've spent some time talking about planned giving from an organizational or congregational perspective, and now we're going to shift to a more personal conversation. I have these questions on a resource page, so you don't need to write anything down unless you have ideas that you want to collect. I love these questions because I find that they're helpful as we begin to think about what is special to us. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? And to see how your congregation and those that have worshiped with you have made a difference in your life. So what impact do you want your legacy to have? In what ways do you see your legacy gift perpetuating what matters most to you? What has been the most meaningful experience you've had at your church? How has your time here impacted your life? And here's the one that gets me the most. What keeps you up at night regarding your legacy, your community, and what would make you rest easier about that? These can be hard questions for some, or they might be as simple as recognizing the love you have for something right in front of you and wanting to make sure it continues. Whichever it is, I hope you take some time to think about how you were able to tell the people and the organizations in your life that they are important to you, and begin to discover what impact you want to make through your legacy. Where do we start? We're going to begin with bequests because nearly all gifts come in this way. In fact, 80% of planned gifts come from bequests, from wills and trusts. Some, if not most of you, have made a will at least once, and maybe more than once. The first time I was part of the process was after my grandmother died. My mom is an only child, and her mother was the last surviving sibling of 4. My grandfather had died several years earlier, and he was the last surviving sibling of a very large family. Our family was narrowing. Over the next several years, my mom took inventory of the things older families had: furniture, silver, china, jewelry, etc., and began to determine whether anyone liked it, if it had value, if it had a story. And she started to make a plan. Some things she gave away to people who liked it so they could enjoy it. Some she sold because no one was attached to it. Some of it she decided to use instead of waiting for the right time. And now she wears the jewelry, she uses the furniture, she eats off the china every day. But the part I'm so very appreciative of is that she sat down with my brother and I after she made a list and she shared it with us. She went through the list and asked us if we had anything in particular we wanted. She let us know the whats and the whys of how she'd made the list, and including the items that she had set aside for her future grandkids. And it wasn't our last conversation either. She updated her will a few years ago after moving back to Virginia. They reset beneficiaries as needed and made changes to reflect that there actually were grandkids now. It's a good reminder to take a regular time to take a look at your arrangements and refresh your will so that you can make sure your information is up to date. This booklet here from ECF provides general assistance for items that we all need to do in order to take care of ourselves and relieve our loved ones of the burden of making decisions for us. It's not meant to be confusing. It's meant to help you work through the parts of planning that you need to do. It includes burial instruction assistance, getting started on a will, preparing a medical directive, and making arrangements for organ donation. It's especially helpful that the funeral instructions included offer suggestions from the Book of Common Prayer, and the hymns and readings suggested are part of our liturgy. It even walks you through the prayer book service and is a great first step for your planning. If you haven't had a conversation with your clergy yet, this book can certainly help get you started. All of the property that is in your name that has not been transferred by trust, contract, insurance, pension, beneficiary designation, or joint tenancy is subject to probate through your will. A will typically directs first that all of your just debts be paid and the applicable taxes be paid before your property is distributed. It might surprise you that 51% of Americans do not have a will. I'm hoping that number isn't that high within our congregations, but that's why we do this work, because your will is where you can make specific gifts to those people and organizations that are special to you. I did not grow up in the Episcopal Church, but I did grow up going to church. My parents found a congregation for their new family to attend, to belong to, a place where my family, my brother and I were formed, where we grew in our faith. I have dear memories of the people who helped me become the person I am, of Sunday school teachers, my first youth minister, who took us on remarkable mission trips, and of the dozens of men and women who served Wednesday night dinners. And I hope that someday someone might have similar memories of an impact I made in their life. Even if you don't make a gift to your church, it is important to us as part of our planned giving ministry to help everyone plan their future so that their wishes can be fulfilled. This is the simplest gift of all. And if you have a desire to help with the mission and ministry of your church or the Diocese of Virginia, I can help you with basic bequest language. Bequests to family and charity can be made in several different ways. You should give some careful thought to these methods because a good plan will frequently involve a combination of bequests. For example, you can give a fixed dollar amount to an individual, or you can bequeath specific property. There may be some assets that you have that are important to you or have sentimental value, and you want to select personally the individual who will receive that property. After fixed amounts or specific assets are completed, the balance of the estate or the residuary is divided on a percentage basis, and you can make distributions to individuals and organizations based on percentages. You just need to make sure when you're doing the math that everything actually adds up to 100%. Exactly 100%. Finally, you may even consider a contingent bequest. If some family members or even all family members have passed away, it may be appropriate to remember a charity or your congregation with a contingent bequest. And this takes effect only if the other people are not living when you pass away. When we look at specific amount bequests, there are a few things to keep in mind. $10,000 designated in a will in 1980 was a substantially different amount of money than $10,000 now, or even that same amount 10 years from now. Also, these specific bequests must be paid before any other allocations will be paid out of your estate. While this is probably the way our brains work by giving specific amounts to people, if you have a change of circumstances or your assets have become consumed due to end-of-life care, You could be offsetting the legacy you want to leave and leaving almost nothing to someone you hold very dear. You might want to consider using the percentage approach so that you could give to all of the individuals and organizations that are dear to you an amount relative to one another, and it will hold constant. If you decide you want to give to your church or another charity a specific item, please reach out to them first to see if they can accept it. And most congregations would prefer to receive unrestricted gifts, and that is typically because they have a good idea how they can best use their planned gifts. But there's a natural tendency for us, especially if we are giving a significant gift, to want to restrict it. Keep in mind that unrestricted gifts allow congregations not to be encumbered by anachronistic gifts. You don't want to put a beloved institution in a position if you don't have to. Immediate gifts are gifts which allow you to realize your legacy gift within your lifetime. Tax deferred accounts aren't something that most people think about when we talk about planned giving. Here, folks have put away funds before they're taxed and which should, hopefully, grow over time. Then, when you are able to start taking distributions, you begin to pay income tax on the amount you take out. I know y'all know this. One thing to take into consideration is who will receive the remaining balance once you or your spouse have passed away. Many people leave a significant balance, and if you believe in the future ministry and mission of your church, you could put your parish as the full, partial, or even contingent beneficiary of your tax deferred account. This way, the parish will receive the amount entirely tax free and would be a tremendous gift to your parish. An immediate gift using your tax deferred account is an IRA charitable rollover. If you are 70 and a half or older, you can make a contribution to your church directly from your traditional IRA simply by instructing the plan administrator to make the transfer directly as a qualified charitable distribution. As an individual, you are allowed to transfer up to $100,000 a year to the charities of your choice. Your gift will be transferred directly. It will not be reported as taxable income and will count as your minimal distribution requirements for the year. And most important, your generous support will help sustain your church's transformative work and brings about renewal and positive change in your community. Life insurance can also be a wonderful gift to your parish. If you have a policy that has value that you no longer need, you can make the parish the owner and beneficiary of your policy and receive a substantial tax deduction for the gift. Then they would receive the amount when you pass away. And if you're interested in something like this, you could consult your agent or broker for help. Real estate can be a wonderful gift, but it can also be difficult. Some real estate can be hard for churches to sell, or it may be encumbered in some way. For example, gas stations. Who is going to pay for the cleanup, etc., and in order to get it ready for sale? This is where your church's gift acceptance policy will steer you and help you know what can be accepted. The discussion of how to benefit from sale of appreciated property is definitely something you should discuss with your financial advisor. When we're talking about appreciated property, we're thinking about works of art, classic automobiles, securities, real estate, coin collections, rare books, things like this. So just in case you've gone Marie Kondo through your home in the last year and you're interested in donating a collection of vintage records, this is where you would need to contact your financial and tax advisors. Charitable lead trusts, I put them here on the list because some folks will have heard of them or read about them. They are very rare. In fact, there are only a few thousand in the entire country.
They're very complex, and they require assets going into the trust of $10 million or more. That said, if you would like more information, please let me know. Here are the highlights of life income gifts so that you can see what is available. Episcopal Church Foundation, ECF, is an independent and lay-led foundation whose mission is to strengthen the leadership and financial capabilities of Episcopal congregations, dioceses, and other institutions. They are here to help us in every way possible. They have pamphlets for us, they do webinars, they have people to talk to, like lawyers, and they can create gift vehicles like the ones we are about to talk about. These gifts are more complex, and individuals can contact ECF directly to get help setting them up. There will be many differences among the gift vehicles, but for all of them, the donor makes an irrevocable gift and receives a substantial charitable deduction. Then the donor or the designee receive an income for their life. Then when that individual passes away, or when the term of years of the trust ends, the gift value is liquidated and given to the charity. Now we'll look at some specific gift vehicles. Pooled income funds aren't as popular as they once were when interest rates were higher, but ECF still makes them available because some folks still like them. Here are the basics. When a person makes the irrevocable gift, it is pooled with other gifts. Participants then receive a pro rata share of the income only, that is, the yield that is produced. This is great for people who are comfortable with variable income because the gift vehicle does not get into the capital. For the same reason, it's also perfect for people who want the maximum remainder to go to the charity. Charitable gift annuity is the most popular, and the vast majority of all life income gifts come in through this. Charitable gift annuities because it is the most straightforward and it is guaranteed income. Here's how it works. An irrevocable gift is made, and the donor enters into a contract with an entity, say ECF, who guarantees to pay them a fixed amount of income. It could be to a donor, it could be a couple, or even someone they designate. It could be to parents or a sibling. This gift is very flexible. The income can even be deferred and become part of someone's retirement plan. The nature of this gift is different from the pooled income fund because this is designed to dig into the principle of the gift. The goal is to leave about 50% of the original gift to the charity when the income beneficiary passes away. That amount could be higher or it could be lower. It depends on how long you're paying out income. It also depends on the markets. If there are difficult markets, it could be lower because the contract does guarantee a fixed income amount, and that amount has to be made up from somewhere. It is possible that a gift could exhaust, leaving nothing for the ultimate beneficiary, the charity, but it is very rare. If you're using ECF, the ultimate gift has to be an Episcopal entity. For both the pooled income fund and charitable gift annuities, they can only be funded with cash or appreciated securities, and they can only be paid out to one or two people. The charitable remainder trust is more complex, but it also has more flexibility. Because it is its own charitable entity and gets its own federal ID number, it's capable of receiving different types of assets. It can receive cash and appreciated securities like the others I've mentioned, but it can also receive real estate, family stock, and other assets that are difficult to value. It can give income to more than two people, and if you're using ECF, as long as 51% of the ultimate gift goes to an Episcopal entity, 49% can go to other charities. It's a very useful tool for those people who may have different needs. A charitable remainder trust is a split interest giving vehicle that allows you to make contributions to the trust and be eligible for a partial tax deduction based on the trust assets that will pass to charitable beneficiaries. You can name yourself or someone else to receive a potential income stream for a term of no more than 20 years, or for the life of one or more non-charitable beneficiaries, and then name one or more charities to receive the remainder of the donated assets. There are two main categories of trusts: a fixed annuity trust that distributes a fixed annuity amount every year, and additional contributions are not allowed, and a unitrust, variable, that distributes a fixed percentage based on the balance of the trust assets, which additional contributions can be made. If your own attorney is not an expert in creating this type of trust, ECF can work with your attorney for free to draft the trust documents. ECF Foundation can also serve as the trustee for your assets for the life of the trust. This is a benefit that they are able to provide for parishioners. If this is helpful, and if you have specific questions about any of the gift vehicles we've mentioned, you are welcome to contact them for assistance. We've gone through a lot of material. We've talked about building your legacy and questions to help you think about what is important to you. And we've talked about some of the planned giving vehicles. Your work is twofold. How will you begin thinking about your own legacy and what that means to you? And if you're a leader in your congregation, how will building a strong planned giving program for your church help grow your ministries and build your legacy as a congregation? Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help. Thank you for joining me for this presentation on the ministry of planned giving. Being able to recognize God's presence in our lives at all times, in weakness and in strength, in times of plenty and in times of poverty, helps us recognize the difference God makes in our own life. We are taught to share this blessing, this good news that we recognize in our lives, and when we find it, to be a blessing. Please like this presentation and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll see notifications when we post new videos. We have a wealth of stewardship resources available on our diocesan website, and I also invite you to join us on our Stewardship and Development Facebook page. We've recently presented a Facebook Live session on digital giving, and there are more planned. Be sure to like and follow our page so that you'll be notified when more are scheduled, and so you will see our daily posts on stewardship and giving in our current context. The diocese also has a dedicated planned giving website available to help congregations and parishioners with many of the conversations that we have had today. Parishioners can do research from the privacy of their own home, and congregations can use this site as a resource too. I heartily recommend signing up for our bi-monthly planned giving e-newsletter and using the legacy giving resources. And now we'll close with a prayer from Henry Nouwen. Dear God, I want so much to be in control. I want to be the master of my own destiny. Still, I know that you are saying, let me take you by the hands and lead you. Accept my love and trust that where I will bring you, the deepest desires of your heart will be fulfilled. Lord, open my hands to receive your gift of love. Amen. Thanks again for being with me. Take care, and I look forward to talking about the ministry of your planned giving.